Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So today I'm gonna demonstrate a feature which you can use it. I mean, it's not an out-of-box feature, but you have to build it. But you might have seen this before. The and today I'm gonna show you a clever way of doing this. Okay, so the thing is, you might have seen, right? Maybe in your Salesforce journey, a customer would have said, "Hey, I have a requirement where I have to, where I would like to do a bulk select on a specific object and update a record, right? Pretty simple, right? So for instance, in this case, I have a requirement where I wanted to bulk select few cases and change the status to, um, say, to new and the priority to low, right? The to field update. So in conventional term, right, you might have done that using Visual Force page, right? Which was pretty obvious in the past. But I'm not going to demonstrate anything using Visual Force page. I'm going to show you using Flow and Invocable Apex. Okay. Now there is a problem with the Flow, which I'm going to talk about it, and the mistakes I've seen people usually make. Okay. I'm going to demonstrate how it looks like. Then I'll show you the code behind the scene, and we're going to append the Flow a bit to add more fields to it, and I'll show you how flexible it is. Um, so let me go to all open case, right? Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to select these two cases and I wanted to close it. Okay. Let's say for whatever reason that this is the requirement, I wanted to change the priority to, okay, let me pick this one, right? Just to say status for and this two. Okay. I wanted to close this two and I wanted to change uh, the status to closed and priority I wanted to change it to say medium. Okay, I mean I do understand this is a bizarre requirement, but just for the sake of demo, right? So I'm just updating to field. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to do update case. So if you're new to this, if you haven't done that before, I will show you each and every step, right? How to build it. Okay, so I will select the status called closed and I will set the priority to say medium. Okay, and I will say update completed. Fantastic. All right. Um, okay, so these two ones, right? This is exactly what we did. And now if we see it's closed, just now we did. And now let me go back to the uh, open case and see, you'll see two of them missing, right? Pretty simple, nothing fancy. Okay, let me show you the code first. All right, first the flow, right? So you go to the setup here and go to the flow, right? And update case. This is the name I've given. You can keep whatever meaningful you write, right? Okay, so this is the flow. Pretty simple flow, as you can see. Nothing fancy here. I'm selecting a screen. Okay, so before I do that, I just wanted to guys to pay attention to the left hand side, the collection variables. The ID S, right? That's the IDs which you normally get when you click this, right? So there's nothing fancy, just a simple IDs. This is what I've named. If you rename it to some, I've noticed, right? I mean, you might have noticed that as well. If you rename to say something else, it won't pick up the IDs. So I just kept it as IDS, the lowercase, and I marked it as available for input. Just made allow multiple because it's a collections. Obviously, you can't make it as a one field. It has to be collection because it will contain the list of ID. It could be one, it could be more, right? So that's simple. Um, so that's the one thing you have to pay attention to. And the field names, values, right? You must be thinking why I've used this one because that's where the invocable method comes in the picture. Okay, I'm going to explain to you in a minute how the code looks like. And if you want, you can expand it according to your requirement, right? And this invocable method you can use for any objects, not just for cases. Okay, so let me walk you through this flow a bit. Then we're gonna look into the invocable Apex, right? Okay, the screen is pretty simple, right? So it's just um, a pick list, right? And then I've attached to the pick list, the variables to it, which is a choice set, right? That's pretty much it, right? This is a choice set. I hope everyone knows how to create a picklet choice set, right? It's pretty simple. Just go to variable, choose a picklet choice set, select the field, um, something like that. See, right? Choose an object, choose the data type, choose the field. That's pretty much it. Nothing fancy there. So this screen contains two fields, right? Now the self assignment, right? Okay, so I'm going to stop it right here and I'll take you to the code, right? So what's the purpose of using invocable apex? So that's the first question you must be asking, right? Right. Now, if you remember, as a part of this flow, right, when you select this, different records, it will obviously give you the IDs, but we are not only after IDs. We wanted to, in this case, in this current requirement, we are after status and priority. Okay, so how do you get a status and priority from an object? Obviously, you have to query it, right? Now, in this case, if you're not using invocable apex, you have to loop the IDs, right, and get individual record, right? Obviously, that's because right now you can't query in a bulk, so without using an invocable one. So in this case, well, if you're not using invocable apex, so you have to put that IDs in a loop, you know, get one record ID, get the object, do whatever you wanted to do it, and put into update collection. So the problem is not the update here, right? Updating is pretty simple, right? You can put in the collection and do a single update, but fetching a record, right? So every single fetch will count as a single, will count for the so-called count, right? So imagine, you have like 1,000, it will hit the so-called limit, obviously, more than that. So you have to pay attention to that. So I mean, and plus, it gonna make the query very slow, right? Because you keep on getting, one at a time. Imagine if you have a 5 million record, say, right, and every single time you're trying to get it, it just makes your query extensively, slower, right? Which is not a really good practice. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to use invocable apex. So all I have to do, I have to get the. So what I'm doing, so in this case, I'm passing um, the the few inputs to the invocable apex, right? So first, the API name of an object, which is obviously the name of an object you're dealing with. In this case, you're dealing with the case. So remember one thing, right? This invocable apex only support one object. So obviously, your intention is to uh, select a single object and update on that object, right? It's not like you're selecting a case and updating something else, right? I mean, you obviously can do that, but for this scenario, just wanted to keep it simple. So I'm just looking for single object update and select, okay? Field names which need to be updated. So basically, the name itself indicates, right, the field's name, given the name of the fields which you want to be updated, right? So in this case, we are after priority and the status. Okay, so two fields want to be updated. The list of API field names to query. So obviously, right? You cannot. So you have to get the field API name up to do an update, right? So what I meant by that, right? So for instance, in this requirement, I'm after status and the priority, right? So to update that, obviously I need to get that field first. So I'm gonna do select status priority from case where ID and whatever, right? So I'm actually sending out the fields which I need to fetch, right? I just made it, simple here. I mean, obviously you can also use the same field names which needs to update it, so which is not a big deal. But just to keep it simple, I just separated it. I mean, you can do the single one. The list of IDs which so which you're gonna use for in clause, right? So select um, priority status from case where ID in the list of IDs. That's the list of IDs, right? Um, Obviously, you cannot pass any other information here for the where clause. So I'm assuming because this invocable apex for now is used only for the list view selection, right? The values which needs to be updated, obviously you need to pass the values, right? So in this case, you're going to select the value from a screen, and that screen value will be updated to this values. Now, one thing I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm only supporting the string type. You can be clever, and support different type. I'll just give you an idea. You can expand the code. Okay, so let's go to the invocable apex. Right. So, okay. So this is a code which is pretty simple, nothing fancy here. Right. So this is the input invocable variable. Right. So object name, which is the name of an object. I mentioned that in this case, you can pass account, you can pass contact, you can pass any custom object you want. Right. So I made sure that all of these fields are required. Otherwise, someone prefer not to um, give that information, and and might cause an issue, but that's up to you, right? I mean, you can uh, change the code according to your requirement. This is just a skeleton code I'm sharing with you guys. You can make use of it the way you want. Okay, so all right, now the field names, this is the field names which you're going to use for the select query. And the IDs, which is the IDs which you're going to get from the list view, right? The checkbox which you're going to tick. Um, the values is the values you're going to pass. Okay, now field name to update, that's the field names which need to be updated. Now you have to keep one thing into consideration: the order, right? The way you put the values should match. So what I meant by that is like, say you wanted to update, say, two fields. In our case, status, priority, right? So you should put the status first. I mean, if that's the order you wanted, right? So you should put the status first, and the priority for second, right? So let's say in the field names to update in the list, you put the field names to update dot add, that's the status. Field names to update dot add, that's the priority. So the status will be at 0th position, and the priority will be at the first position. The same thing you should apply to the value. So because it should be one-to-one match, okay? It shouldn't be the case that because I mean, you can control it, right? Obviously, you are the developer. You're going to build it, so you can control it the way you want it, right? But just to make it strict, I just, guys, let you know. I just want to let you guys know that this is how I built, right? So it's one-to-one match. So 0th position on the field name to update should match the 0th position on the values, okay? So what that means is that if in the field name to update, the 0th position is status, the value 0th position should contain the value of status. It should not contain the value of priority. If you mismatch, right? If you mix and match, it will break. Okay, so just keep it in consideration. I mean, you can be clever, right? But if you're planning to implement something like an AI, that's not really there yet. So, but it's up to you. If you're clever, you can build it. So, okay. So this is the final method what I built. So, um, and one more thing, right? You can also add another variable that's called the type, right? Because right now I'm only supporting string type. You can add a list of variables, which contains, say, something like. I'll just show you something like that. I want to change my code, but I'm just saying you can say something called type, right? So type list, all right. So in that type list, you can put I for integer, so D for decimal, right? B for boolean, and then you have a different parser at the end which converts, a type to an object, right? So that means something like, let's say if it's an integer, you can say object val equals to, boolean, sorry, integer the value of, right? So you can, sorry, the other way around. Something like that, right? I mean, you get the point. So you can convert it to an object, and can put it. That's just one of the idea I'm just telling you guys, right? I mean, because obviously you might ask me the question, Hey, that's fine. I mean, we are doing string. What if we have a date and time, or integer, or boolean? I mean, how do you handle it, right? So obviously you can write that in your invocable method. So that's what I'm saying, right? You can add an extra uh, uh, field, which is a list of it, and then pass the ID. So what happens, say in this case? So I'm just gonna get messy here. Sorry for that. So so field to update, right? So field name to update. So your that's the zeroth position will contain say integer name, right? Say price, okay, or days, whatever, right? Number of days, okay. Um, so this is a value which is in zero position, which is a field name days, and your value will contain exactly in the zeroth position, say one, okay, number of days one, and your new field, so which is called the type ID, in the zeroth position will contain I, which is integer type. All right. Now goes to, let's say you're gonna add the first, like the first position. It will contain a value called date and time, and the value say for contain now, the first position, and the type first position will contain D, right? It's the date and time. So you have to build a kind of a tiny parser, which is pretty simple, right? I built it in the past, but just to let you know. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry I digress, but I thought it's just to give you an idea, right? If it's confusing, my apologies. I'll try to explain it in a simple way. All right. So the bulk update record list, right? That's the name of a invocable method. So it will receive this input values as you've already seen in my flow, right? So this is the input variables. And so here the code is pretty simple, right? So I'm just trying to get the first value, right? And like we have field and string. Okay, so here I'm just trying to build a so-called query, right? Based on field name. So this is the field names I said. So I'm getting a field name, which is like status and priority in this case, from object name where ID in. Okay, and I build a query selector, which is, I think if you're following along, you might have seen like last year I did something like this. I built a tiny query selector. Let me show you the class anyways. Just pretty simple. Right, so this is a query selector which I built just for my own convenience. So I'm using this one, right? So what I'm doing is that, okay, I'm passing the value of SQL and the value here, right? And I'm gonna get the list of S objects. It's pretty simple, nothing fancy here. Um, so you can use this. Okay, so I got the query and I got the list of S objects. Now what I'm doing is that I'm looping through S objects and I'm updating the field, um, and I'm putting it to the field name and the value. So if you remember, I talked about why the position of both the list is important. So as you can see, right, I'm assuming that the first zero position of the field name will contains um, the field name, right, which will be equivalent to the zeroth value of the value list, right? So okay, and then updating it, which is pretty simple. Nothing fancy, right? I know that code is not very clean, but just a quick and dirty code I've written just to demonstrate. You guys can enhance it, whatever the way you want. If you want, I can share you the code. I'll just put a link to my blog. So just copy the code from there and do whatever you want. It's your code. Have fun. Okay, so let's go back to the list. Okay, now so this is where the magic happens to set field name, right? So what I'm doing, field name to update, I'm adding the status. This is a variable I built. So the field name to update. So these are the status and priority. Okay. Now you see the values, right? So as I've said, the zeroth position of the field name should contain status. The zeroth position of the value should contain the value of a status. Okay. First position of the field name to update should contain the priority in this case. The same, the first position of the value should contain the value of the priority, so which is pretty. And this is the same field names, right? Okay, so that's pretty much it. And let me run and show to you guys. So, okay, which I've already did. Okay, now I wanted to add an extra field to it, right? Do you have to change my Apex class? Absolutely not. I don't even want to worry about Apex class. So this scenario really works. Let's say if you're working in a small Salesforce shop where you don't have much developers, or let's say your developer is super busy, ask your developer to build an invocable method. Then if you're an admin, you can reuse the same invocable method for different objects, okay, and for different fields for that matter. That's why I said you can extend. If you have some requirement like this, you can give this code to your developer, ask your developer to add the field type, right? Like if it's a boolean, and write a parser and a tiny kind of a code which if you guys can't do it, just let me know. I can help you guys. It's pretty simple, right? So, all right. So what I'm going to do, let me look at this code, the record, right? So which field shall we use? Case reason. Is there any case reason? What is a case reason? Where's that case reason? Okay. All right. So not the case reason, right? Type. Okay. I wanted to add the type. Okay. So I wanted to say whenever okay, so whenever I changes the case, okay, let me add the type case origin. Okay, so requirement is along with these two fields what we have, right? I wanted to change the case origin to say phone. Okay, pretty simple. All right, so what I'm gonna go to my flow. Okay, so all I have to do change my flow, right? A bit. I just need to go to the edit object. Okay, I don't even care. So I will go and create um, another pick list choice set. Um, so, so what I'll do, I'm gonna do pick list choice set. Okay, so what is the field case origin? Okay, so we're gonna do case origin. Okay, and we're gonna do case. Where the heck it is? Case. Yeah, pick list, right? Case. Case origin, right? Pretty simple. Okay, now what's the error? Something must have failed. All right, that was pretty strange. Okay, I'm just gonna add here another pick list, right? And I will say case origin val. Okay, and we'll say case origin, right? Done. Now, I just wanted to look at the field API name because I have to add it to that um, API field update, right? So we'll go to edit object. And it's pretty simple, right? As you can see, you don't have to write much fancy code. Um, Case. Oh, oh yeah, field name, origin. Yeah, you must be thinking, right? This requirement is garbage. Yeah, I do understand. It's not a fancy requirement, but unfortunately, you know, for a demo, right? I can't really demonstrate a extreme business level requirement. My main intention is to get you guys understand the concept, and you guys can build on top of it, right? Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm adding field names, right? In this case, because obviously this will form a part of the select list, right? Okay, now I wanted to add field name to update. So I'm saying I want to add origin to the second position of the list, right? and then I'm going to do the same value. Yeah. So I will add to the, which is this screenshot component, right? Okay, this is one. So I'm going to add origin to the second position of the list, the same way the origin value to the second position of the list of the value list, right? Done. Um, Save as, just a new version. So what I'm trying to demonstrate, right? You don't have to touch the code, right? If you're an admin, so so you can add more fields. One more thing I just wanted to tell you guys. Maybe this not a good approach in the code, right? To do bulk update here. You might be better off doing as an async process, like you can do a batch process. That's another way, right? So because what happened is that you might hit CPU time if you're doing a complex process, but I mean, if I personally believe that you should be writing this final update, or for that matter, right, you can do this entire stuff in a batch, right? This, uh, getting and doing whatever you want to do. But that's up to you. Just see how it works, right? I'm just giving different suggestions. I can't help it, right? This is one of the things, as an architect, you just think about different pros and cons, and just figure out what's the best value for the money. When I talk about the value for money, I'm talking about the resource constraint, the quality in terms of the way you write code, and the performance, right? This matters a lot, and performance costs customer a lot of money. Trust me, I've seen that. It not only costs customers money, but it adds to the list of frustration as well, which is not really good. Okay, sorry, I digress. Right, I updated the case. All right, now you must be thinking, how did you manage to get this button here? All right, that's pretty simple. So what I've done, go to setup. You go to the case, right? Right, and go to the buttons, links, and actions, right? And you do just new button, right? I've already done that, so I'm just gonna show you. So this is how something looks like. Make sure you select the list button, right? And this is the flow name. This is the flow name, and return a URL. I'm just returning to the recent list, okay? Because obviously you have to return your flow to somewhere, right? Otherwise, what happens if you keep on running in a loop, okay? So yeah, so that's pretty simple. All right. So what I'll do, I will go here and let's look at the open list, right? And let's select open case and these two VV1. Hopefully we can clear it off. And case origin web, I'll change it to phone. And this VV boy as well, case origin to phone. Okay. So select this one. All right. Update case. Hopefully it won't fail. Let's see. Right. Okay. So now you have three. Okay. So you can see closed, medium, and phone. All right. Update completed. All right. Where is the VV boy? Let's see. Something would have happened. Open case. No, that's great. All close case. Now the interesting thing is, all right, daytime. No. Right. Let me see. VV. No. Okay. Breezing case. Maybe this is the one. Hmm. That's interesting. Now I've obviously the case has been closed, but I'm just trying to see where is it. Just a second. Um, All right, so probably I will add select fields display, last updated maybe. Okay, daytime closed, maybe that might help. Last modified date, right? Okay, let's see. Um, last modified. All right. Okay, yeah, these are the two things, right? Okay, that's fantastic. So one more field I just wanted to add here, the case origin, right? Okay, right. You see, it's full now, and close, close, and medium, right? So the code is working. So as you can see, it's pretty simple, right? It's very handy for admins, right? I know that back in the days, I've used Visual Force. I'm not saying to discard Visual Force. Visual Force is still useful if you're doing extremely complex process, right? For instance, if you wanted to generate an XML using a Visual Force page, you can still do using the flow. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it. You can pretty much do that as well. Um, you don't really see the say for instance, if you have a requirement, right, where you have to select, say, 10 accounts and generate an XML and attach to it, you can still use the flow and invocable method, right? Or you can trigger using a batch. So, you really don't have to use Visual Force page. But again, right, case by case. So this is all I wanted to demonstrate. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just do let me know, right? So I thought, this might be useful for admins, or even if you're a developer, right? You might find it interesting. So, as I promised, I will put the code in my blog post, and I will put it in the description below, along with the video. So if you're interested, just check it out, right? So, all right. So that's pretty much I wanted to talk about in today's episode. I hope you guys have an amazing Saturday. Adios.